Hello lads, I am here again, and yapping, because I don't have the time to sit down and play fan games currently this week, so I apologize. Hashtag AP and college level class student. Yeah, that's me. I had 80 vocab words to study last week. Anyways, today I wanted to discuss my take on gender roles and their relative impact in Undertale. Basically dissecting gender in any way, shape, or form I can think of. This video will be split into 3 sections, by the way. We'll start with gender neutral and trans representation, then overarching impact of gender on the story, and then finally end it off with the fandom views and opinions. So, we will start that now. So, firstly, we got gender neutral and transgender representation in Undertale. To me, this is 1, very relevant, and 2, very impactful. We obviously have our main protagonist, Frisk, and then the silly surprise of Kara, right? And they are our they-them soldiers, okay? The fandom all knows it well, and here's why this is actually... Ooh, my wrist just cracked. Here's why this is significant. A lot of games will have you choose either boy or girl options, or a lot of RPGs will have you play as a set character with lore and story, aka Pokemon games and Zelda games. Those are some mainstream examples of that. Undertale doesn't just use this to portray like wonderful representation, which I will dive into in a second, but it also creates a distance between character and player that it then utilizes to develop its storyline. And that is a whole nother conversation. But yes, there is this connection that it creates to non-binary players, obviously, as I was saying with representation, but also this distance because we are somehow playing as someone who is genderless and raceless, and, you know, we know they're a kid, but ultimately ageless. And it appeals to any player because of this, which is the goal. But Frisk still has their own story of falling into the underground, and even like their own name, which is revealed kind of at the end. I'm trying to remember if it's neutral runs and pacifist runs or just pacifist runs, but we obviously know the human's name is Frisk. It likes... What the hell did I write? It likes the best? What am I trying to say? It's like the best of getting a character to represent us without changing them at all or destroying an already established character. I think character customization, this is a little bit off topic by the way, that would obviously be a horrible idea for Undertale and shatter this perfect balance we have, hence why it's probably briefly displayed in Deltarune. Yeah, this isn't the point of our video, I don't know why I added this. Alright, talking representation wise now. According to a study held by GLAAD, or GLAAD, less than 2% of video games actually have any LGBTQ representation in them, let alone trans representation. Undertale not only has this beautiful representation in Frisk and Kara, but in other characters too. There's a lion NPC in Undertale. I really have to burp. Okay. There's a lion NPC found in Undertale that talks about wanting to wear a dress. She is then referred to and displayed as a female lion NPC in Deltarune. Oh my god, I love her so much. Anyways, the small things, the hidden details, the feel of normalcy and something that society can find so appalling at times. We don't have to get into that, but I think you all know what I mean. That is what makes Undertale so beautiful to trans audiences, to anyone really. I'd say this is also what sets this video game apart from others. Now this is the part where everyone goes to the comments and they name a video game that has trans representation to try and prove me wrong, okay? So I can play them later. Moving on. Point numero dos. How gender plays a bigger role in the story. So there are a few characters that I want to point out for this. Firstly, we're going to start with Toriel, who I've never talked about before, so here we go. She's obviously a woman and is portrayed as this loving mother figure. To those of you who to those of you who have played, Underswap fan games, I ask you, how has having a fatherly figure instead kind of changed some of the narrative points in the story? If you were to back up and kind of not relate the story to Undertale, which I know is kind of dumb because it's Underswap, but what I'm trying to say is, I think Toriel, this is going to sound so dumb, was intentionally a woman. The game opens with Flowey, but like after that, it begins to get you into this idea of safety and guidance, and it does that through maternal love. Now I have to point out, Toriel has obviously lost 2 children and has reasons to act so approachable and loving to the protagonist, which I like. And, even this happens even if it isn't all 100% her character normally, say before these events. Oh no. There was an ad in Spotify and I do not, I'm not free advertisement, so that's, I had to cut it. Where am I right now? What am I saying? Alright. Something, Toriel, something, lost her kids. I don't want to just analyze her in this video, so I'm just gonna point out what I want to say now. Toby Fox intentionally created this gender-typical character to begin the game off with, and create a loving atmosphere using our prior determined knowledge of what a quote-unquote housewife, I really hate that word, or like motherly figure should look like. I want to take this a step further with fandom analysis next, but this is plot-based stuff for right now. I am also, alright, take this, watch this, before you comment, I am in no way calling Toby a misogynist for, this motherly figure type of stereotype. I'm just pointing out how she's written, Toriel, how Toriel's written. I am not saying that there is nothing else to her character than being the goat mama. That's a whole different story. I'm just saying that it's intentional that she's a woman, and I will expand on this in a bit. But next, I'm going to talk about Undyne, our girl boss queen. She's a heroine, a strong woman, who of course is a lesbian, because shout out butch lesbians. But anyways, she's strong. And she's one of the first serious bosses we meet, in accordance of, Toriel. She avoids harming you after a while, and Papyrus just lets you pass if you die a few times, so. Undyne to me on my first playthrough was a big, like, whoa moment. I was like, oh, this game means business. I think it was such awesome sauce that Undyne's a girl. Like, imagine if Papyrus and Undyne were gender bent. We'd have a quote-unquote unserious character as a female and the strong hero as the man. Ugh! Shout out Undertale for the amazing feeling Undyne creates in the story. Lastly in this section, I want to talk about the role Asgore plays and why it's impactful that he's a man. He obviously... No, he's not ovulating. What the hell am I saying? He obviously is this very smart, strong, scary king, and is foreshadowed throughout the game as both the ruler of the underground, who will steal your soul, but also this deception some of the characters bring up to you, saying you could work things out with him peacefully in the neutral run, but that's a different story again. I don't want to say like, oh, man equals strong, but thinking just the basic correlations we naturally make in our heads, whether we want to admit it or not, the word king will, for the most part, evoke the feeling of strong male dominance and energy. And knowing we had to face a king in the end built up fear and determination throughout the story. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, a queen wouldn't seem strong or fearful to have in a fight. I mean, we see in Delta in Chapter 2 the idea of a fierce female ruler, And well, she's sexualized, but beyond that point, she fits the story and vibe very well with her character. I think the same about Asgore. This is also not to hate on Underswap fan games. I know they swap the roles of characters, but they are a good example. Something about Asgore warning us at the beginning of the game that his ex-wife will kill us doesn't evoke the same emotion as Toriel's dialogue warning us of he, Asgore. I think this male power versus loving mother, although stereotypical, rightly sets the mood and story based off prior assumptions we make about gender and roles that have been kind of engraved into society. Whether or not we agree with the idea of a housewife and strong husband is subjective, but Undertale uses it to create this almost like fairy tale story, king and queen, and it works. With the inclusion and role of characters like Undyne as well, I think it kind of balances out this whole thing to where I thought Undertale was extremely fair gender-wise, and it did not just conform to stereotypes. Okay, now we're touching upon number 3. The fandom's thoughts. This is kind of like the first idea I had that made me want to make this video. And I don't know, this is the point I'm kind of excited for, but I want to start with Sans and Alphys, which I'll talk about together so I can relay my point better. Sans. Silly bone man. We love him. He can be described as secretive, smart, and a jokester. Alphys. Insecure, hurt, nerd. We all love Sans, right? He's like the face of the fandom. You think Undertale, you think Sans. And I know if he was the exact same but female, he wouldn't be loved as dearly. And if you disagree with me, that's perfectly okay. I would love to hear about it. But I'm kind of strong with this opinion. There's something about his character that has to be male to be well received. He's sexualized and simped over about as much as any other female character, which we'll get into by the way. But he has to be male for the fandom to love him. I just feel it in my bones, okay? Source, trust me, bro. Sans that, okay? Sans that. Girl Sans wouldn't blow up. I hope she wouldn't blow up. Wouldn't blow over well with anyone, really. I'm sure what we find silly and chill about Sans, we'd find pick-me-girl-like and annoying in a female version, because that's just how society is conditioned to be, and sometimes men can get away with doing things that girls cannot. Alphys is kind of an example of that, and a little bit of why I think we'd hate girl Sans. Also, my source is that Sans won Tumblr Sexy Man, and he can't do that if he was a girl. Cause like, I feel like Sans winning Tumblr Sexy Man in like covers how the fandom sees him, right? And he can't if he's a girl. He can't be Tumblr Sexy Man. So back to Alphys. She's as smart, if not smarter, as Sans, and has many quirky, silly things about her. And everyone says they hate her because she's selfish and made one huge mistake talking about the lab and the experiment. But then what's so different about Sans? I mean, if you look at some of his traits, he could be annoying too. He tries to kill us. Alphys doesn't, by the way. And he's just as secretive as Alphys. He also has a secret laboratory. No, Shopify! Guys, who wants to buy me Spotify Premium? Please? No, I'm kidding. Now, I'm not saying, oh, everyone hates women, so that's why they hate Alphys, because she's a woman. I'm just pointing out how I think Alphys is really slept on. And y'all will probably want to bang male Alphys and call him like nerdy boy or something. Although, I will give y'all the benefit of the doubt. Because in Deltarune, everyone hates Birdly. And if I had to compare Birdly to any character, I would say male Alphys. But also, on the other hand, he's supposed to be hated and arrogant, and then he has the character development. Like, that's kind of the whole, premises of that. But anyways, Moving on from them, let's go back to Toriel. We've all seen it. Rule 34 of Toriel. That's what it's called, right? I forget the number. Is it 34? It doesn't matter. See, I wouldn't know something like that, but I'm sure all of you would. And like I said, with Sans being sexualized, boy oh boy is Toriel sexualized. Although, I gotta say, this happens with like every character, so I'm just gonna say you guys are horny. And a quick point to mention, you guys really like to draw Frisk as a girl and make it sexual and weird. They're a minor and non-binary. In all seriousness though, do I think there would be so much inappropriate content surrounding, say, like Asgore or another male equivalent of Toriel? Not really. Not saying that, you know, suggestive content doesn't happen to male characters. Cough, cough, Sans. Cough, cough, Papyrus. But I'm saying it'd be less, at least, in my opinion. And none of you guys can refute this by saying something in the comments like, I've seen, you know, Rule 34 of Asgore tons of times. Because if you say something like that, I'm gonna screenshot it and send it to your college. And then I'm gonna say, you like furry porn. Okay, I'm thinking I wrap up my vid here. I hope you all enjoyed. Quick but very big and warm thank you for recent support. We hit 300 subscribers and over 4K views on the most misunderstood Undertale characters video. I'm glad that you guys enjoy me talking about Undertale, and I'm excited to make more of these. So subscribe if you haven't, so you can catch the next one. And have a great week. I really need an outro. What should I say? Should I start saying, stay determined? Or like, what can I say? Despite everything, it's still you. Something something. Sans. Peace out, Girl Scouts.